there is a serious weather emergency playing out right now as we speak. There's been a very high level of rainfall overnight and during today, and it's likely to continue. And at this stage, there are major flood warnings across a number of catchments. The Cairns airport has just closed. It's expected to see flooding that exceeds the 1977 flood level. There are significant concerns across a range of communities across the far north, and so the State Disaster Management Committee is working with all of those local disaster management committees. We've seen rainfall in some places of almost 600 millimetres, with more to come. There are currently 10,500 people without power. In addition, here in the southeast, we're experiencing a heat wave and are likely, it's possible we will see severe thunderstorms later in the day. So if you know of older folk who might need assistance during the heat wave, please take care of them, but we'll go straight to Laura from the Bureau.
Good afternoon. I'll start with what we have seen already today. So the highest rainfall total from today, so 24 hours from 9 a.m. this morning, is Black Mountain in the Barron River catchment. That saw 652 millimetres within a 24-hour period. But we've also seen dozens of gauges that have seen exceeding 300 millimetres across that large North Queensland area. So these are really high amounts of rainfall, and they're falling into catchments that are already saturated. So all the rivers are responding very quickly, as well as creeks. So to put that into perspective, over the last 7 days, we've seen over 21 of our gauges record over a metre of rainfall. So these are really large amounts of rainfall. And as we continue to see the rain falling, they're falling into areas that are already flooded and responding very quickly. The two main hazards from this is flash flooding and riverine flooding. So the flash flooding is both dangerous and life-threatening, as it can happen very quickly. So the totals that we could see, 6 hourly up to 300 millimetres, and in a 24-hour period we could see rainfall of up to 500 millimetres possible. So again, this is a lot of rainfall falling in areas that are responding very, very quickly. In terms of riverine flooding, we have major flood warnings for an area from the Daintree down to Ingham. So currently we have Daintree River in major, Barron River, the Mulgrave Russell, Herbert River, Tully and Mulgrave, and the Johnston River, all in major flooding or having major flood warnings issued for them. So we're seeing this rainfall, as we've seen in the past sort of 12 hours, it's falling continuously, and that is expected to continue over the coming day. So it's not this patchy rain, it's very widespread and it's very continuous in nature. The situation is changing quite quickly, and it's evolving quite quickly as well in terms of the flooding. So we are just encouraging people to stay up to date with the riverine and the severe weather warnings detailing that flash flooding risk, as they're likely to change quickly, and the Bureau will be issuing updates as required. Over the next period of time, we could also see, if we do see a reprieve in rainfall for a few hours, those river levels steady or start to fall, but noting that if we see any further rainfall, we can see those river levels immediately start to increase. So really wanting people to be aware of that. It won't take a lot of rainfall in these catchments to see more flooding. In terms of what we're expecting over the next couple of days and the timing, we are expecting this rainfall to continue for the rest of today and well into tomorrow. The most likely scenario is that we will start to see easing later tomorrow and into Tuesday. However, there are a range of possibilities at this time, so it's just the most likely that we will see that easing later tomorrow. But in terms of the next sort of 24 hours, so the rest of Sunday and the rest of Monday, it's very likely that we will see a repeat of what we saw today. So again, we just really want people to stay up to date with all of those warnings as they are being issued as required. And just please note that things are responding very rapidly to any rainfall. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Could I just start off by first thanking the local disaster management groups, the district disaster management groups and the community for listening to us and the work that they're doing right across the north area of the state. As the Bureau has indicated, a serious flooding situation is occurring there that could potentially continue right into Monday. What we're seeing as emergency services, we're seeing the riverines and creeks start to drop and then rise very rapidly when the rain comes, and this has resulted in us undertaking a number of evacuations, and so we ask the community to stay connected with us. We have 37 people in 5 evacuation centres at Edmonton, Marlin Coast, Innisfail, Mossman and Wonga Beach. We also have a number of other evacuation centres that are available should the community need them. So please connect to your local council and your local disaster management website to see where those are occurring. We've had multiple evacuations and rescues overnight and today, primarily in Mossman, Douglas, Gordonvale and the Innisfail areas. And this is exactly due to what the Bureau indicated of rapid rising of floodwater when we have intense rainfall over isolated areas. As indicated, the Cairns airport is closed. The Cairns airport, and please, if you can, please stay off the roadways as much as possible at the moment. We are seeing considerable damage to our roadways from the floodwater, even as the floodwater drops. So please do not go on those roads. We've had reports of people swimming and driving into floodwaters. Please don't do that. The roadways underneath may be severely damaged. As the State Disaster Coordinator this morning, I've asked the State Disaster Coordination Group to meet and plan to put additional government and non-government resources into the far north as quickly as possible, and this planning is underway and most likely tomorrow so that we can get them into our communities. We know that we've had impact in Innisfail of about 8 to 10 low-lying streets have been subject to flooding. Gordonvale, about 2 to 3 streets. And the Mossman low-lying areas, the same people we evacuated last Wednesday, have self-evacuated to higher ground today. Additionally, I've been personally speaking with the National Emergency Management Agency and the Commonwealth about getting additional Commonwealth support as possible. Thank you.
And as you've heard, incredibly significant volumes of rain dropping across those catchment areas at the moment. Our crews have become incredibly busy over the last 24 hours, over 50 requests for our swiftwater rescue response, and our SES units are receiving very high levels of calls to support response throughout those communities. Can I urge everyone to stay informed? This is life-threatening events. We do not need people to be out and about. We do need our resources to be prepared for those areas that do need our greatest assistance at that moment. So if you don't need to be out and about, you're in a safe position, please stay in that position. And as this event continues to unfold over the next day or so, stay informed, heed the warnings and respond to those warnings. We've got resources well placed across the region. We've got specialist swiftwater crews in Halifax, Ingham, Tully, Innisfail, multiple in Cairns, up on the Atherton Tablelands, up in Cooktown, and we've got additional resources positioned across that greater area in addition. So we're well placed, but please, we require the community to get behind and support and ensure when we are responding, we're responding to the greatest need at this moment. Thank you.
Do we have reports of water in any homes?
We do, and there are people in evacuation centres, but I'll get the disaster coordinator to address it.
Yeah, thank you. We know that some of the homes in around Innisfail, the low-lying homes, have been impacted. We also know that those low-lying homes that were impacted around the Mossman River last week have been re-impacted. And we've got 2 to 3 streets in Gordonvale where we have some low-lying areas impacted. In around the Cairns area at the moment, as the water rises and falls, we know we've had some impacts in around the Cairns area. We just don't know how many at the moment because we are still in the response phase, trying to keep people safe at the moment.
I know you can't put a figure.
Look, I can't put a figure on that. Areas today, there are really whether you've experienced flooding before or not, please stay contacted and in contact with communities and the emergency messaging. Because if your home may not have flooded before, but what we're seeing is rapid rise of a already saturated catchment.
Is anyone unaccounted for at this stage?
No, I'm very pleased to say we've had no reported deaths out of this incident in the north, and we've had no reported serious injuries or missing people.
To sum up the situation up at Cairns at the moment, what's the best way to describe the situation?
Well, as the Fire Commissioner indicated, what we're seeing is intense heavy rainfall that is producing at times life-threatening events. We've undertaken a number of rescues in the last 16 hours, 24 hours, where water has risen that rapidly that people haven't been able to get out. So what I would say to everyone listening to our message, if you are feeling unsafe, if you think that you're at risk of being flooded, our evacuation centres are open. Move now and we can support you there. It's much better than having us come in and rescue you.
Is there a potential that you'll declare this a disaster zone?
We already declared this area disaster declarations last week. We did it as a preemptive measure so that the authorities in those areas had their respective disaster powers and regulations that they needed. So that remains in place. It remains in place for 14 days unless we revoke it. And I'm glad we did it preemptively because it's turned out that we've needed it.
Cairns Airport is closed. All the roads in and out of Cairns are already inundated. How much of a challenge is it going to be to get these resources up into the region?
It's definitely going to be challenging. We're going to stage most of these resources in Townsville and then look at our support from the Commonwealth and as well as private resources to get them into the region. The issue that the authorities are dealing with on the ground at the moment is the rain is that heavy. We can't get any airlift support. We can't get any helicopter support into the communities that are isolated. But can I say, the district disaster groups, the local disaster groups have been planning all day, all of last night, and the moment we get a break in the weather, we're ready to go.
Was this something that authorities were prepared for, given that the cyclone had moved on?
Well, we started messaging last week the potential for intense heavy rainfall, and we've continued that messaging all the way through. And even over late last week, the predictions were that the cyclone would move through into the Gulf, but we were also messaging that there would be a continual intense heavy rainfall. What we've seen overnight, however, as the Bureau indicated, very large amount of rain dropping in very isolated but condensed areas.
Can I ask, there were some reports, and I haven't had this confirmed for some of the academies. Some people were on roofs, and do we know what's happening with those guys? Any contact?
Yeah, absolutely. So the authorities have been in contact with those people the whole time. I too saw those reports of a couple of people on roofs that we were not able to get to at that point in time, purely because it was too dangerous for us to get there and it was too dangerous for us to rescue them at that point in time. The entire time they were on the roofs, we remained in contact with them and then we supported them at the first time. We've also had reports of some people on roofs around Yorkeys Knob, to which I know that the swiftwater rescue teams from the Queensland Fire and Emergency Services have supported.
What options do people have if they want to get into an evac centre but they feel it's not safe to do so?
Please contact us. Contact the SES on 132 500. You can also contact, if you feel your life is threatened, please contact 000. But on the disaster management sites at both the local councils and in the area, we're messaging about where the evacuation centres are, the best way to get there. I think the Fire Commissioner summed it up the best. If you feel safe where you are, please stay there, but please stay in contact with messaging.
How long are we expecting the airport to be closed for? Because that's a considerable amount of water that's there.
Well, every time the airport closes, before we can reopen it, we have to undertake inspections to make sure it's safe to do so. As the Bureau indicated, we're seeing a lot of rain continually falling up there at the moment. It's constant rain, and we're expecting that to continue overnight. So the area around the airport is definitely affected by tide as well. So what we're seeing is heavy rainfall and high tides, which are impacting the airport, but it will need to be inspected before we can open it.
I shall ask the Premier. disastrous event, a lot of people are going to have flooded homes. What would you...
On the ground throughout the day, and they say that they've never seen rainfall like in the states far north for all of their lives. So this is very serious, and it could get worse. What I is well practiced at how to after them during these disasters is very good at supporting them in the aftermath afterwards. So right now, during the disaster event itself, we have police and fire and emergency services and SES on the ground doing a fantastic job, and make sure you don't make their off at risk. Do not drive through floodwaters. If it's not safe to get out of your home, contact us and we will help.
Do you think there might be financial assistance available to those people who have lost their belongings?
The initial package of financial assistance is already in place. We triggered that when the cyclone was approaching. From there, we'll continue to fund those packages. We'll discuss with the Australian appropriate based on what the damage is.
Premier, are there first residents who have had their houses and properties destroyed over the next few months as the recovery efforts continue?
Look, as I said, we will assess assistance package. Further disaster assistance package is necessary and appropriate once we see what the damage is, once we do those damage assessments. Hardship payments available for people who need them, as well as funding to the local governments for their preparation